Sexton here with Hill TV. I'm speaking to John Lott, author of many books. Latest one is The War on Guns. John, great to see you, man.
Great
Thank you
to
for making
see
some
you.
time for us here at
Sure.
CPAC. So, what is the state of gun control efforts right now? What are the Democrats trying to pass, and what have they passed recently?
Well, just this week, they've passed two bills dealing with background checks on guns. It was originally sold as a way of kind of stopping attacks like what happened to Gabby Giffords in 2011. Thing is, the person obtained a gun without going through private transfers, and that's what these bills deal with. They try to make it so that any private transfer of a gun has to go through a licensed dealer to do a background check.
Now, could that even mean that bills like this would criminalize a father loaning a gun to a member of his family for going out and shooting or for home defense? I mean, where are some of the ways that this bill could really backfire?
Right. Well, this bill doesn't protects people in those types of cases, but there are examples. Like, let's say a woman you know is being stalked or threatened. She calls you up on a Saturday night asking if she can borrow a gun for a few days before she can go and buy one. You know she's trained and everything. If you were to lend her your gun, you would be committing a crime at that point. And so, or let's say, the Boy Scouts troop that your son may belong to has their annual rifle or shotgun day to go and get their merit badges. If you merely lend your gun to the troops, you'd be committing a crime. So, I think there are a lot of law-abiding citizens that are going to be surprised by parts of this if it becomes law. But I think the more crucial thing to me is just how it will prevent a lot of law-abiding citizens from buying guns. We're in Washington, D.C. here. To privately, which has these types of laws already, to privately transfer a gun in D.C. is $125. Just the background check, none of the licensing or other fees that are there. And the thing is, they charge a separate fee in the federal legislation for each gun you transfer. So let's say I leave you 10 guns. Well, you don't just pay one background check. I mean, you're the one who's being checked. Instead, they'll have to do a separate background check on each gun, and that'll be like over $1,000 then to go and transfer those guns to you.
So, John, what do universal background checks mean to the left and to Democrats? This is a term you hear a lot. What does it actually mean in legislation?
Well, what it means is private transfers between two people that you have to go through a background check. And if you transfer it without going through a background check, you're going to be committing a crime. But, it's not going to be solving crimes the way they think. In fact, one comment that we heard many times this week was that there are 3 million dangerous, prohibited people that have been stopped from buying guns because of background checks. That's simply false. What they should say is that there have been 3 million initial denials, and that virtually all of those, probably something above 99% of those, are mistakes. It's one thing to stop a felon from buying a gun. It's another thing to stop somebody simply because they have a name similar to a felon from buying a gun. And the thing is, the Democrats refuse to fix this. I've been talking to them about this for 20 years. You buy a gun, you fill out the 4473 form to do it, you put in your name, your social security number, your address, your birthday, your race, your eye color, and you think they're using all that information. What they use is they use roughly phonetically similar names and similar birthdays. And so you're going to get lots of mistakes that occur there. If private companies try to do criminal background checks on employees the same way the federal government does, they'd be sued out of existence. If they had an error rate that was 100th the error rate that the federal government has, they'd be sued out of existence.
What do you see as the central areas of the fight over gun control going into the 2020 election? You got a lot of Democrats. Some of them are far left on the ideological spectrum. What are going to be the areas of gun control that they're calling for and that therefore could be enacted under a new president?
Right. Well, if you get a Democrat president and they were to pass something like this universal background check, I think it's just a prelude to having national registration of guns. This legislation right now officially says that it's not going to be used for registration, but the thing is, this information is kept by the licensed dealers. And 5 years from now, if you have a Democratic Congress and a Democratic president, they could just tell all the licensed dealers, all that information you've been collecting, send it to the federal government, and you have an instant national registration of guns. And, you know, I've come to the belief that they want to do whatever they can to make it costly for people to have guns.
Do you think that there is a chance in a Democrat administration that they might try to use such a registration, if that were to occur, and then declare a national emergency for confiscation purposes?
Yeah, I'd see that quite possible. I mean, you've seen California, New York, Chicago, other places in the United States that have already used registration lists that they've had to identify people that own guns, to force them to have to turn them in and get rid of them. Wouldn't be a stretch at all to see something like that happening nationally.
John Lott, the author of The War on Guns. John, thank you so much for your expertise. Always good to see you.
People can find more research at our website at crimeresearch.org.
crimeresearch.org. Well, more rising coming up.